It gives me great pleasure to greet each and every participant to this research management conference, which I understand is held on a national level. So all of you come from different parts of the country, and we are happy that you have gathered together to learn more about research, to exchange views and experiences, as well as to harmonize your research plans with the policy thrusts of the Department of Education. Research plays a very important role not only in policy formulation but also in monitoring and assessing actual implementation of policy, and finally um, assessing the effectiveness, the outputs and the outcomes of such research-oriented policy. I myself started my career as a researcher. I was a research assistant before I became a faculty member of the University of the Philippines. And I appreciate the importance of doing knowledge-based research work before promoting a particular policy or embarking on a specific program or project of activities in an institution. The research process is not perhaps as exciting as others may think, but research which helps us discover new knowledge, draw conclusions, and perhaps observe the implementation of public policy is every bit as exciting as teaching or as exciting as the policy formulation process itself. Now, a huge organization like the Department of Education needs tremendous research support for its activities, especially now with the present administration, a new president, a new leadership, not only in the entire government but in the Department of Education as well. It is very, very important that any enhancements will be based on research. All of you have heard me say repeatedly that these enhancements include an improved and much more experiential based and knowledge-based knowledge about our drug campaign and how it relates to science and health, to be able to help our students understand, not only to understand but also to resist the dangers of drug addiction. You all know about the President's concern over the alarming rise in teenage pregnancies. I have learned, for example, that in places where people are put in common shelters, where families have to sleep together, or where you have entire communities sharing facilities, toilet facilities, bathing facilities, and all other services of government, when they share them together in one place, in place and conditions of crowd, of great big crowds and so on, the danger always of teenage pregnancy is there. Not only of teenage pregnancy, but also of incest, prostitution, and all the social problems which our young learners, our children, are exposed to. I'm very interested in looking into the veracity, for example, of the relationship between prolonged stay in shelter, so-called temporary shelters during disasters, and the time span, the wide time, time that is used and utilized in order to place them in more permanent homes or more permanent communities. And I'm interested to know if indeed there's a correlation between disaster and pregnancies. And of course, we have been given data by outside agencies on the number of youth, the dominance of youth and young people, dropout children who are already pushed into either into the drug addiction, whether as pushers or as users. I want sound research on this, which can be the basis of policy. The preponderance of young people who are now drug victims or pushers as well. Now, also, I'm very interested in, I've already mentioned disaster risk mitigation and its relationship with pregnancy. I would like also to look at how the Department of Education can be much better and much more useful in terms of contribution when disasters arise, and how to prepare our children for not only acceptance but also surviving disasters themselves. And finally, you have heard me say often that a major legacy which the President will leave when his term expires, and also the Department of Education in 6 years' time, would be the the alternative learning systems. We're interested in the many ways by which alternative learning is disseminated, and where people, young people, even mature people who have not finished basic education can take advantage of our services so that they can join mainstream and they can have better opportunities at jobs. I always say that ALS will be the major project of the President in education. It will be his legacy, along, of course, with our support and continuance of the senior high school education. There are many areas of research which you can look into. I have already mentioned the enhancements, which are on the matter of drug education, reproductive health, disaster risk and mitigation, as well as alternative learning systems. But perhaps you can also look at the impact, the problems, the challenges that are now being met even as we implement the senior high school program. Doing research for education is really it's not so difficult in terms of identifying what you would want to do research on. You throw a stone, you throw a piece of stick, and it will land on a research area or on a research challenge. This is because our organization is so huge and it has very many responsibilities in terms of giving services and education to everyone who deserves it. But of course, research is not done by ear. Of course, when you play a musical instrument or you sing, you can sing oído, you can play a musical instrument oído. By oído, I mean by ear. There are those who don't need to study piano to be able to play the piano well. There are those also who can formulate policy without having the support of research activities. But to be able to do effective and knowledge-based research, you have to be trained. I'm sure that many of you who have already finished your graduate studies, you are trained in research. Those of you who have written theses and dissertations know how it is done. But of course, you have to apply all these things to the issues that we are facing in education. And for those who have not done major researches at all, this will also be an exciting experience. So I wish you well. I hope that in the few days that you will be together, you will not only be reviewing, because I know that you have already been exposed to studies in research and how to do research. You will not only be reviewing the research process, but also and equally important will be the selection of your research topic, which should be responsive to the present thrusts, particularly the 10-point program of the Secretary of Education. And so, and you can be assured that the results of your research activities will be put to good use. We are now in the process of continually reviewing policies and formulating budgets in relation to policies and formulating programs and projects and activities in relation to the budget. All of these need research. So I wish all of you well. I had hoped that I would be with you, but duty calls in many other places. I am confident that those who are leading this program under Yusek Mateo will see to it that when you come down, go down, and go back to your respective stations, you will have value added and you will be able to identify in your own locality or in the Department of Education as a whole areas which still need research. And you can be sure that the products, the outputs of the research that you make will be taken seriously by the leadership of the Department of Education, including the EXICOM. So I would like to wish each and every one of you a wonderful and great time in Baguio, but please calm down, and when you return to your respective places of work, please think of the research that you are going to do and your contributions to the Department of Education. Thank you very much.